Capital Record, where we defend free enterprise and capital markets because we believe in the dignity of the human person. Hello and welcome to another episode of David Bonson's Capital Record, brought to you by National Review. I continue to go through 2025, finding a couple topics a week that I think are relevant, pertinent, and oftentimes found in the news that I can go use to talk about capital markets and talk about free enterprise and appeal to certain first principles that allow me to make the broader economic points that I deeply care about that drive the vision of this podcast. And I worried at the beginning of the year that there would be some slow weeks or some boring weeks where, I'm going to have to really get creative as to where I extract a topic from. And I do hope that moment comes, because so far it's not coming, and it's only not coming because every couple of days I am finding something to basically infuriate me. And when I get infuriated, I get inspired. When I get inspired, I come talk to you all on Capital Record. And yes, certain things that are passed off as cogent economic policy represent the inspiration of my infuriation. And here we are today to talk about one of those. I did something earlier in the year about the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac issues. We've done other things so far this year when it comes to tariffs, when it comes to health insurance, when it comes to the big pharma position that so many have taken. And right now we have another issue that lends itself to there being a popular opposition to what I'm about to say, because intuitively, this subject sounds as if it has a very easy protagonist and antagonist. And that subject is credit card interest rates. And you could say, okay, well, obviously we're against high credit card interest rates. And I'm going to make the point today that for those of us who are desirous of a free and virtuous society, that in fact, my position that federally mandated caps on credit card interest rates, like that which was proposed in a Senate bill this week by the socialist senator of the great state of Vermont, Bernie Sanders, and the increasingly mysterious senator in the great state of Missouri, the show me state, Josh Hawley, co-sponsoring a bill, getting everyone so excited about the concept of bipartisanship, only to find out that this is textbook bipartisan lunacy, that it is Elizabeth Warren who has brought a Republican male over to put their name on the bill instead of her. And you could say, wait. The protagonist is the good guy. And are you saying that the good guy here are credit card companies that want to charge 20% or 21% or 22%, and not the great benevolent senators that want to cap what they would charge at 10%, so as to bring the borrowing costs down for so many Americans, including low income Americans who have high credit card balances? Isn't this obvious who the good guy and bad guy is? And what I want to say, back to the aspiration I have for a free and virtuous society, is that in fact their policy goes against the virtuous solution that my policy aims to achieve. The free side of this is the easy part. It is none of the government's you-know-what business what a private bank charges to a private borrower in credit card interest. It is outside the legitimate jurisdiction of government. If one says, well, we think it's too high, you now have to answer who you are to be the authority figure on what is too high, and why the people who should not be determining what is too high are the two people involved in the transaction. And if there is third-party omniscience that makes you qualified morally and intellectually to determine what is too high a credit card interest, I want to know why we stop there. First of all, I want to know why the rate is 10% and not 0. Because if you're really nice, why do you even want 10? Let's kick the niceness up a notch, shall we? Second of all, why is that omniscience not translated to the price of bananas? Now, Kamala Harris said it was, and we all lost our minds because Kamala Harris had lost hers. So we rightly said the government is not in the business of price fixing groceries. When Nixon has tried price and wage controls, when other governmental abusers of power have dared to go where free human beings didn't go by setting a price level at a level that some people perceive to be too high, what we have constantly said is A, you're not a party to the transaction, stay out. B, you're going to do more harm than good. C, the most qualified people to make a decision here are those in the transaction. But it is all the more egregious with the very nature and character of what we're talking about being credit card cost, because there is a significant amount of the population that, as a result of this policy, will lose access to credit. Do not think right now of the person who is sort of a deadbeat or a ne'er do well or someone who's going to run out and max out a credit card recklessly for leisure and recreational purposes, for consumption. Think of someone who has bad credit, who doesn't have great income, who doesn't have a great financial history, but is in need of a credit card for a medical emergency, visiting grandma, just various things that might come up that they may not be able to pay for from wages, may not be able to pay for from savings, and yet they wouldn't qualify for a credit card in the normal algorithmic underwriting that takes place. And when credit card companies price their loss ratios across a highly diversified pool of borrowers, and they have a rate of interest that is used to pay them back for people who don't pay them back, and when that cost, that revenue source is cut in half, is price fixed, is price mandated by the federal government, the one lever the credit card companies have, and actually, as you're going to see in a second, it's not one lever. There's some other ones that are not good either that we're going to get to. But the certainly biggest lever they have in their hand is to not issue credit to people that are in that bubble. That there is a justification economically of a certain borrower profile at a certain level of interest across the population, where their risk metrics have allowed them to price in a loss ratio that is going to be higher. And when that is altered, the immediate way to get the economics back on track is to not extend those people credit. A benevolent government cap is going to hurt people. And the people it's going to hurt are not wealthy people who don't keep credit card balances. It is lower wage people or people with poor credit history that have a difficult time applying. And what are they going to do instead, besides suffer from reduced access to credit? They, first of all, are very likely going to pursue riskier alternatives to credit. They're going to go into payday loans or other things that are, again, are more expensive than the credit cards that the companies, that the government is trying to keep companies from extending. Now, I really can't wait to get to the conclusion here about what the optimal solution is. But I want to point out a couple of the other things I mentioned that are levers the credit card companies have. What about all the people who pay their credit card balances, who don't don't carry balances month by month? They're not susceptible to higher interest. But now, because of the price fixing taking place on the cap of the interest rate that can be charged, the credit card companies cut the rewards programs, cut the benefits. This is exactly what we saw out of Dodd-Frank when all this regulation post-financial crisis took place about debit card programs, is that they overhauled the points and rewards that so many Americans use for travel and for perks and for, points used with airlines and hotels and things like that. So there's a cost to this, and the cost is not borne by the greedy credit card companies. So in pursuit of something that they believe will be benevolent, they are hurting other people, oftentimes the same people they're trying to help, and oftentimes other people that are supposed to be sympathetic characters in our list of public actors affected. The one character not being affected, or I would say this, two characters not being affected are credit card companies and wealthy people. This is the most anti-populist thing I could think of. Now, what some have said is, it doesn't matter. This is out of control. You have $1.1 trillion of credit card balance. Desperate times, desperate measures. There is some disingenuity in that statistic. The credit card balance level on an absolute basis is high. The credit card balance as a numerator divided by a denominator, meaning the ratio of credit card balances to income and to savings is actually quite low compared to some historical levels. But regardless, I have no doubt in my mind that there is a significant amount of money being wasted by individuals on credit card interest. Now, let's go back to the ne'er-do-well and the spendthrift and the irresponsible actor. I apologize that in my vision for a free and virtuous society, I refuse to capitulate to a crisis of responsibility. It does not mean I don't have sympathy for those who made mistakes earlier in life and are trying to fight through it. It does not mean I don't have sympathy for those that lost a job or suffered some financial hardship outside of their control. But to the extent that we're looking to give relief to people who themselves were quite irresponsible, there is a moral hazard there that's unacceptable if you care about the human person. So there is a sense in which sometimes tough love and the consequences, the extraordinary cost of rolling over credit card debt month by month, is one of the great incentives to keep it from happening. But recognizing there are still some actors that were not irresponsible got in that position, my argument is classic Hayekian understanding that the government lacks the knowledge and incentive to understand what the right credit card interest is. They do not have the pricing models of the credit card companies. They end up hurting others through lost access to credit, through forcing them into other more expensive credit channels, through other hidden costs and changes such as reward programs. But fundamentally, why would we want to focus on the cost of credit instead of focusing on greater financial education to avoid people running up credit card balances? For whatever $100,000 of credit card debt exists out there because of medical emergency and lost jobs and very unfortunate situations, many of which under the Hawley-Sanders bill would not have access to the credit they would have needed in those emergencies. But there is multiples higher of credit card debt that was run up because people wanted to go to the mall. And I'm sorry, but the need of the hour is not government fixing the cost of credit. It is greater financial education towards the virtuous society. You're not facilitating a virtuous society by undermining the free society. You're undermining both. Freedom of exchange and the cost of credit is not in the jurisdiction of government, and it does more harm than good for reasons I've already laid out. But to the extent we're trying to promote the common good, you're not promoting the common good by affirming moral hazard. The solution here is a less reckless approach to consumption, a greater financial education, greater financial literacy, and an end to this nonsense that our top priority in life is to consume, even if we're doing so recklessly. So I just believe that they're going after a problem with the wrong hammer and nail, and ultimately doing more damage with their proposed solutions than would be done if they did nothing at all. And that's exactly what the government ought to do here. The government ought to do nothing at all about the price of credit card debt. And I pray that President Trump was not being totally forthright when he said on the campaign trail he wanted to support a bill to limit credit card rates. I pray he would not go forward with this bill that is Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and the fact that a person as intelligent as Josh Hawley is going along with it says something that I will let you extract on your own. It's very, very disappointing to me. But it is not because I am here to support the credit card companies. It's because I'm here to support the person who runs up credit card debt, who is a consumer that needs access to credit for a particular situation, who is going to lose access to credit card debt on the margin, who has a rewards program that they utilize to help supplement their household budget with travel and savings and perks and gifts and other things like that. There is a cost to this intervention, and the cost is not borne by the CEO of JP Morgan. Thank you for listening to David Bahnsen's Capital Record. Please forward this, share with anyone you'd like who you think would be interested in first principles as a way of extracting economic policies and lessons as we continue in our path of trying to promote the free and virtuous society. Thanks so much.